All right. Well, hello everyone. Really nice to be here. Super nice to be at the DAOist. Thank you for organizing all this. I'm Nathan van der Heyden from Snapshot. This is my colleague Avihu from StarkWare. And today we want to make quite a special presentation. We're going to talk about StarkVote, a trustless voting system. So, slide. Oh, it's me. Even easier. So, first, well, I'm biased, obviously, but voting is quite important. We wanted to kind of build a voting framework that's fit for the DAO age, because obviously we have a very special vision with DAOs. We want to kind of rebuild organizations, make them networks, kind of fight hierarchy and all that weight that it creates. And a big part of doing that is creating DAO tooling that can support this vision. So today we have a few problems with on-chain voting to realize that vision. Obviously the first one, you all know about it, it's gas fees. Voting on-chain is expensive. Like on an individual level, voting on-chain can be easily $15, which has many problematic side effects. It leads to lower participation, you have lower quorum, so your kind of ideal of decentralization and true decision-making from your entire community is kind of hurt by this price. So I think one of the most important parts of increasing participation in your DAO or in your DeFi protocol in your community is reducing the costs of voting. This is something you see even in modern democracies. If you kind of look at in the US what's happening, you see lines of people who are waiting to vote, hour-long lines, and obviously you know what that does to voting turnout. That's terrible. So there's kind of a balance between, on the one hand, your perceived impact on an election, on a vote, and on the other, your perceived costs. And it's quite hard to increase your perceived impact, but it's actually relatively easy to reduce your costs. And that has the same effect on participation. The second problem with on-chain voting is more on a system level. So there's a little bit of code attached to all ERC20 tokens that are used for governance. And this little bit of code is basically used when any token is transferred. The token contract remembers in a way where the token was. And this is key for on-chain voting, because any vote is attached to a certain block number. Any proposal is, at this point in the blockchain, who had which tokens. So all these tokens kind of have this little part attached to it, which is like the history, in a way, of the token, which is very useful, obviously, for voting. But this little bit of code, this little bit of additional code incurs a cost. Like estimates put it around like a few dollars every transaction, but that actually adds up pretty quickly when you know that most big tokens like Uni or Compound or everything have this little bit attached to it. Actually, this is the code attached to the Uni token, which create this extra cost. So a few dollars on each transfer, I'm going to let you do the math. That's actually quite expensive. So today you can have two options for voting. You can either vote on-chain, and voting on-chain has this really kind of built-in security of Ethereum. Everything is stored on the blockchain. You've got trustless settlement of these votes. By trustless settlement, we mean that the outcome of the vote creates a reaction without any kind of human involvement. But the problem is you're paying these high gas fees. You'll have this extra gas cost for transfers, even transfers that have nothing to do with governance. And at the same time, this leads to like the lower participation, which is absolutely what we want to avoid for DAOs and DeFi protocols. And your second option is voting off-chain. So that's what we've been working on with Snapshot. And the great advantage of this is obviously that it's free to cast votes, it's free to create proposals, it's much more flexible in the ways we calculate voting power. So you have all these really nice advantages, but the problem is that it still means that your votes are going to be stored and indexed off-chain. And that creates a problem when you want to resolve on-chain for those off-chain votes. Because you get into a dilemma. Either you need trusted actors, trusted humans to relay the results of the vote on-chain, or you need Oracle-based settlement, which is very interesting. That's actually a solution that people at Gnosis have been working on quite a lot through the reality.eth Oracle. And basically, this Oracle allows you to trustlessly resolve on-chain, settle on-chain votes off-chain. The problem is that this Oracle is based on game theory. It can't actually read on-chain balances. It can't verify if people actually had the votes, if the vote was actually what is relayed on-chain, but rather, it's a game theory thing. People are betting on an outcome, and the largest bet takes it. So that dilemma is either trusted on-chain, trusted relays, or trustless relays based on this Oracle. Obviously, the perfect voting framework is pros of both. The perfect voting framework makes it really accessible, really easy, completely free to vote, create proposals, but at the same time kind of brings you this trustless settlement on-chain of votes, and also the very important verification of on-chain balances to make sure that everything is clear and solid. Until now, this was not possible. This is why I think what we're bringing you today is very exciting. Using StarkNet, basically we can reduce the costs of verifying balances on-chain and of indexing votes on-chain to really, a negligible amount, an amount so negligible that will take care of it for you, and that's StarkVote. Basically, using StarkNet's I think the best word is computational magic. We can finally bring these two together, really cheap on-chain voting. So without further ado, I will let Avihu talk to you a little bit more about StarkVote.
Thanks. Hi. Let's spend 10 more seconds on this beautiful meme. I kind of felt that it's necessary to include it in the presentation, especially because I want to explain in the next 10 minutes or so about how StarkVote works. So it's going to be a little bit technical, but I think that we can go through it in 10 minutes. Let's start. Okay, so first of all, what StarkVote brings to the table, as Nathan mentioned, our two goals are the following ones that you see here: to enable inexpensive, trustless voting to be settled on-chain. So we want voting to be accessible for everyone, but we don't want to pay the settlement price on-chain, and we don't want to involve trust. So that's the first goal. And the second goal is a byproduct. We want to remove the need for those expensive checkpoints. It's like you can think of it as a huge overhead on tokens that are used for voting, and we want to remove these. So those are like the two main goals of StarkVote. In addition, we target backward compatibility because we understand that if we create a solution that you have to change your token contract for it, or you have to change the way that you sign, or to lock tokens, this is not going to work. So we want something that will be easily adaptable, and this is StarkVote. You have full backward compatibility. You don't need to do anything in order to use this solution. So to understand how StarkVote works, you need to understand storage proofs, you need to know what StarkNet is, and then to understand the mechanism. So this is exactly what you're going to see now. Did someone hear before about storage proofs? I guess few did, right? So the general idea of storage proofs is that Ethereum did this wonderful thing that you see here, and in every block there is basically a root of the latest state that the block knows. So there is a commitment for the state of Ethereum in each and every block, and this state includes the storage of all contracts. So of course you can always store stuff in the storage and access them, but there is a better, cheaper way using storage proofs to do that. And the way that it works is as follows. Every block contains this state root that we mentioned, And this state root is a commitment for the state. So if I know the right path to the storage contract, and if I know how the storage contract is stored inside the state, I can take out a commitment for every balance in every token contract, which is great. Basically, if you see this slide, this draw, I think it's almost as old as Ethereum. But Ethereum actually brought this new idea of putting state root inside the blocks, and this enables me to say, hey, look, at block 175223, account 175, let's say it was Nathan account, held 27 in his balance, and then one block later, it held 45. And I don't really need to access the storage for it to verify it. It's enough if I know the state root, and I can already verify that Nathan had 27, and then he has now 45. And we can use this to in our voting app, right? So if until now we had to access the storage for every verification of every balance, this would be expensive. This is a significant part of the cost in voting. And we don't want to do that. So instead, let's use storage proofs to verify the balance of Nathan in every block that we care about. And we just store one time the state root for the relevant block. Let's say block 6 million is the relevant block. We store the root one time, and then every time we want to verify any balance, we can, using the path in the Merkle tree and the state root, we can verify each and every balance. And that's the secret sauce, if you may. So, okay, this was exist since the inception of Ethereum. So why nobody used it up until today? Obviously, you can guess the reason, or one of the reasons is that it's pretty expensive to send those long paths to Ethereum. If you want to send now for every balance that you want to verify, you want to send several kilobytes or tens of kilobytes of information, it doesn't make sense because it's going to cost you almost as much as accessing storage, and maybe more. So it's not feasible to use it on Ethereum today. And this is where, basically going back to the meme, when we put StarkNet in the picture, it brings us the ability to do these kind of things. So just a couple of words on StarkNet, because I do want to present it to those who are not familiar. So StarkNet is a Zk rollup. It's a layer 2 of Ethereum, and I will explain in 2 sentences what do I mean by Zk rollup that is a layer 2. It means that every state transition of this network is verified with proofs, and every time there is a change in the layer 2 state, then it's reported but as on-chain data to Ethereum. So it's much, much, much less effective and can do many more things that can't be done today on Ethereum. And it can do all kinds of things, but one of the main things that we care about is that you can send messages to layer 1. So you can do some computation on layer 2 and then just report the result to layer 1. And we are going to use this. StarkNet Alpha is basically alive on testnet since June, and as you can see here, it's going to be on mainnet. We are going to deploy the alpha version on mainnet already next month in November. So the reason the storage proofs are so cheap and easy on StarkNet is because computation and data are very cheap on StarkNet. So this whole idea of sending long Merkle passes or computing a lot of hashes or verify signatures, it costs much, much less to do it on StarkNet than on Ethereum. And in addition, something that if you will dig, you will find that is not that simple. It supports the crypto primitives that Ethereum already uses today, like Ketchup and Ethereum signatures. So the way to enable verification of storage proofs is pretty straightforward. If you already have Ketchup, if you already have Ethereum signatures, you can easily verify storage proofs, and you can easily verify votes on StarkNet. And layer 1 messages gives you the ability to do backward compatibility, right? So you don't need to ask people to read the layer 2 state. You can just report the results back to layer 1. So that's the whole magic, right? If I have to summarize the way that it works, even that I think at this point you can figure it out yourself, every time there is a new proposal that is generated in Snapshot, you can store the state root for the relevant block. It can be the block when the proposal was created or any other block in the future. But that will be the point in time where your balance matters, right? And from this point on, you use only this route to verify any balance that you wish to. So users, they just vote the same way they vote today on Snapshot. They just sign off chain and submit the result of their vote. They cast the vote to Snapshot. And the votes plus storage proofs are being generated off-chain and sent to layer 2 StarkNet contract that knows how to verify the storage proof. It knows to say, okay, Nathan had 45 in this vote, so this is what I'm going to count for him. It knows how to count the result and eventually report the results to layer 1. Everything is done in a trustless manner, so there is never a point of trust in a way that you can never put a balance that didn't exist. You can never fake a signature, obviously. And then every layer contract that is interested can read the result in a trustless way. That's it. That's basically how the magic works. Here is the complex diagram that says basically everything that I just said. Right? You can see what you already familiar with the snapshot interface on the left, and then there is a backend part that generates the storage proofs for every balance of every user that cast a vote, and report at the end of the day the votes to layer 2, which computes the total result and send it to layer 1. Now I'm hiding all kind of other cool stuff that it enables, because it enables layer 1 smart contract to vote as well. It can enable users to vote directly on layer 2, hence moving forward it will be more censorship resistant than today. But those are stuff that will come later. We want to start first with a trustless version of Snapshot that we can use as early as the end of the year. And that's basically the last slide. Nathan, maybe you want to come say a few words about that. We expect to release it by the end of 2021, and we're really interested in people to come talk to us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to try out StarkVote, and I think it's going to be really important and interesting for any DAOs, please join the discussion. You can get in on Discord. The link is on our Twitter. We really want feedback. We want to hear from you what you like about this. What would you like to see in the final implementations of StarkVote? So please, all the feedback is truly appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, so we got time for questions, everyone.
Yeah.
So that's fucking cool.
Thank you.
So thinking about like the compound fork and like in using compound governance and that being trustless way to move tokens around or use treasury or change smart contracts. Thinking about this and the way that the layer 1 can point to layer 2, it's basically identical, right? There's like no security trade-off that you're making.
Yeah, I think the main maybe the main thing that we are still not enabling in the way that we would like to is the censorship resistance, because ideally we would also want that everyone will be able to vote by themselves if they wish to, and we understand that it will take some more stages, but except that, yes, it's you have no compromises on security, on trust, except that. Yeah,
that's really cool.
In the graphic before, you showed snapshot and relayers. Can you talk about the backend relayers?
Yeah, I think I can say a couple of words. Basically, the goal of this backend is to enable at the end of the day for every user to generate a storage proof for its own balance. Now, this is something that is going to happen off-chain, and ideally it's something that should happen on the application level. Like, if Snapshot wants to support it, StarkNet is a network, so there is a smart contract that everyone can read, but the input to the smart contract is going to be storage proofs. And if you want to generate the right input, you need to know the structure of your token contract and all kinds of things. So at this point, it's Snapshot's role to generate those proofs. I don't know what exactly their plans to the futures with this, but the idea here is that every we know to generate those proofs for every storage, for every token contract, and potentially you don't have to. You can use it for your own token implementation, right? It doesn't have to be Snapshot generating those storage proofs for everyone. I hope I answered the question. If not, you're more than welcome to catch us after the.
Sure.
Any more questions?
Hi guys, thanks for the presentation. I'm John from Bogdani. Would this system allow?
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Yes. Sorry. I'm John from Bogdani. Thanks for the presentation. We've been using storage proof since May in one of our products in our own voice, so it's really cool. I want to ask you, would this system allow for anonymous voting also?
It did came up. Like at this point, we don't target, like in the first phases for sure, we don't target private voting or anonymous voting, but we did have some thoughts about how to do that. Obviously, we will have to change the structure, and to keep it backward compatible will be harder, because then at least the prover knows the details of the votes. So I would answer in two parts. The first phase, you can imagine semi-private voting, meaning you don't necessarily have to publish the balances or the vote, and you can still be sure that the result is correct. But some entities did view the data, like snapshots that generate the storage proofs and the prover. At the very least, they did see pieces from the data. I can think of a future version that will be completely or more anonymous, but it's not what we are targeting at this point.
Yeah, if I can add something about that, it's definitely something we're looking at, but at the moment we want to do it right. We don't want to just hide in our front end and do like this semi-anonymous voting. We want to do it right. So this is definitely something that we'll be able to think about a lot more now that we are working with StarkWare.
Thank you for the question. It was a pleasure to present here, and we're very happy to be here.